Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Find and Follow podcast, where we are all about helping you find and follow Jesus in your everyday life. Scott and Kyle, your host for a super special edition here. We've got a guest on today, and it's a first ever. So not to hype it up too much, to put too much pressure, but Melanie Hall is our guest today on the podcast.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast,
I'm so honored to be here.
So you're a super fan, you just said.
I'm a super fan of the podcast.
Long time first
fan?
Oh,
yes. I do a lot of yard work and listen to
Only
you
when
guys.
you're doing
a lot
yard
of
work.
painting and projects and listen to the podcast.
Yes. And you're a friend of ours.
And yes.
And you said you would be brave enough to come on. Maybe be a little sweaty, nervous, but share your story.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And this is the first ever. Here's the hype moment. You brought a guest.
I did.
And that's I think the first ever where our guest brought a guest. You invited.
I
want to
invited
introduce
your
guest?
beautiful wife, Amy Langhans, to be my support hype
Did
woman.
you say my beautiful wife, not your beautiful
Yes,
wife?
your
Okay,
beautiful
your
wife.
yes.
My beautiful friend, your beautiful wife.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Here to support my friend.
Yeah,
Yes.
and participate.
And participate. I'm not just going to be a lump over here on the sofa.
So we've had two ladies on the
Woo!
podcast at the same time.
It's about
Watch out,
time.
people.
This is going
changing.
to be
I'm
probably
here.
the best ever then.
It's going to be.
I'm
Record.
sure.
It's going to be something.
It'll be great. And so today, as you just share your story, Amy may jump in too with a
Okay.
question or something.
Oh, please do.
You know,
An insight.
Yeah.
you know how this goes. It's just the casual chit chat,
Yeah.
and we just kind of talk about who God is and how He works in our lives. And we already had a bunch of good chit chat going, so I feel like we're warmed up, ready to go today.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
always warm with the chit chat.
Yeah. And Craig was like, "You guys got it. I think 5 is too many people." So
Thanks, Craig.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll listen in.
He'll listen in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be
Yeah.
awkward.
Shout out to
Where
Craig.
would he sit? Right here in the center? And then he'd be like,
He'd
awkward.
stand up. We did give him a podium. We still got the old wooden one in the back that he used to use.
I don't
Handmade.
think he's doing that, but
Wow.
Yeah.
Custom made.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal.
Why don't you ever use it?
You'll
you've
look
seen
once
it.
you look at it, you'll know why I don't use it. It's not really my vibe.
it's not
okay?
really anybody's vibe. It's
Maybe
not
you should
Craig's
make it a
vibe,
new one.
It was Craig's
Oh.
vibe in 1992.
but it's not now.
Oh.
Correct. Anyway,
Okay.
back to the podcast.
Yeah.
Hey.
So you're on. Well, when we have guests on, we just love to hear your story of how you found Jesus, and it's helpful for people listening in. It's also helpful, for you as you just kind of walk through
Yeah.
and process it. But people listening in, it helps them hear about how God works, and maybe
Yeah.
it resonates with their story or someone they know. And so, how did you find
All right.
Jesus?
Well, how far back do you want me to go?
Well,
As far back as you want. I'm interested. I don't know your whole story.
Okay, I'll give you like a brief overview of. So I
and why don't we start current too? So who
'Kay.
you are today?
Oh, hello.
And then we'll back up.
Okay. I am Melanie. I am a mother. I have 4 sons, 16 down to 5. And I'm married to my wonderful husband, Sam. And
How long have you guys been married?
we've been married 13 years.
13.
13 years, and we live here in the Valley, and I have a really important job. I'm a cheerleading coach at Ridgeline.
Yeah. Go Falcons.
It's very important. I know I joke about it, but I do love it. And I also...
Do you joke about it because you feel like people don't take cheer serious
Oh,
enough?
for
And
sure.
You take cheer very serious.
I do take it very seriously. This
And
is
it's
my
not
10th
just a
year
job
coaching.
to you. You have
No,
made friends
it's-
with the girls, and
I'm
you
friends with the
impact
girls.
their
I'm friends with the girl I
lives.
coached
Yes.
with. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's more than just...
Oh, I barely get paid, so
Yeah.
it's not really a
It's-
job.
Right.
It's,
It's more about the relationships you have.
correct. Yes. Yeah. And then for a long time, I was a dispatcher for the fire department, and I actually just started back there part-time. So I do that as well, and that's me.
What's one of the top craziest
You don't maybe want to
dispatching?
know.
Like the short version that you could tell like on air here. There's
I
stuff
don't-
that comes through that's nutty.
No-
in
oh, yeah.
The world dispatching.
For sure.
Fire,
I
police
had
stuff.
I had a plane crash into a river that was and I just got off training, and they're like, "Oh, these are the calls you never get. We never get these." And I got this plane crash came in, and I was like, "Oh, it's a plane crash." And then they're like, "Well, now it's a plane crash, but now it's a water rescue. So now you got to send the boats, and you got to send this." And I was like sweating and overwhelmed, and
Was it like a witness that called in and that saw it?
they called in engine trouble. It was like a
Okay.
small
Yeah,
little
yeah.
2-seater, and then out at Feltz Field. So they knew it was coming in. They were having brake and engine trouble. And then, so we prepared for like a plane crash, but then it crashed in the river. And then there was a train blocking all the fire truck. It was just a hot mess. So that's one of my bigger ones. But I have delivered 3 babies over the phone. Not that I really, I mean,
You've walked
I
people through.
assisted someone
For
delivering their
sure.
own baby
You've
over the
delivered.
phone, which is like, I always cry.
Yeah,
I'm like,
for sure.
congratulations. So that one's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Name it after me.
I know. I'm like, is that a boy or a girl? Can I come hold it?
And probably most of us, I don't think I, really connect the dots. Thinking about like, how did the fire truck show up and the police and who knows how to get there and what's going on?
Yeah, it's a
And
big
how many to
There's a-
send?
me.
Yeah, there's a Mel
That's
behind
you.
that coordinating.
me.
Yeah.
You're the hub for the information.
That's me.
And who needs to come and
Yep.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the job. It's a very important job. It's very rewarding, but it's also very stressful and hard. And so I'm happy to be doing it part-time.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Have you had a shift yet?
Yeah, one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I'm going actually today at noon to go work again today. So hopefully nothing happens in Spokane today.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Stay safe out there, Spokane. If you're listening, don't call Mel.
Don't call me.
don't call the fire department.
Yeah.
All right. So then we can
Okay.
back up wherever you want. Start
Okay,
in.
so I'm from here. I grew up, I was the youngest of 3. My parents, not religious, no Jesus in our house, very young parents. So I'm the youngest, and my mom had me when she was 22.
And all girls.
All girls, yeah.
So how's that for you? I'm just going to interrupt your story a lot today. How's that for you with, you had 2 sisters, now you have 4 boys.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think I prefer boys, honestly. It's been, yeah, after sisters. And then later in life, I got 2 stepsisters, so there was 5 of us girls in the house. So, I'm happy to have boys, I think. Yeah, so.
But one girl would have been fine.
I mean, I would have taken one. But God's plan's bigger than mine, so there you go. So I'm the youngest girls, and when I was 10, I think, my parents got divorced. So, I'm a product of divorce. And then we struggled, like, growing up. Like, no Jesus, none of that, but also, like, we were poor. Then my parents got divorced, and then not a great relationship. So my dad moved out when I was 10, and then I just didn't see him anymore. Like, we didn't do weekends. It was just, okay, your dad's gone. He didn't pay child support. So we, went on welfare and struggled. My mom worked at a bingo hall. So lots of different people like moved in and out with us when I was that age to kind of help us pay the bills and
Like family?
family. I had a cousin. My mom had friends that she worked with. Just different people always kind of in and out of our house. Had cousins. Just, a lot of people just to help. I think at the time I thought we were helping them, but I think it was more to help my mom.
And so is that the same for your sisters? Like 0 cut off with dad, kind of? I mean,
Kind of. They were older. So Amanda was 14 and Melissa was 12. So they had a little more of like, they would go, Amanda's boyfriend at the time when she was 14, 15 was 20. And she ended up marrying him.
Sounds
but
like a good
anyway,
plan.
he would kind of come in and they would kind of go spend time with my dad, but I just never did. Like, it was just kind of like,
Was it your choice or was it like you didn't like
I don't
to go over
remember.
there?
I think I
Okay.
remember asking my mom once, like, oh, will I just go to dad's every other weekends now? And she was like, no.
But he didn't pursue that relationship either.
No.
Like
he
hey, I
was
wanted to
very
come over.
he was very hurt. It was my mom's idea to get divorced, so he was very hurt by her and didn't really want anything to do with her. So, yeah, it was an odd, and he wasn't like a real
He
loving hands-on
Yeah.
dad anyway. He was a mechanic. He worked really hard to take care of us financially, but not a lot relationally.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for him, it was just kind of like, okay, well, see ya. So he was just gone. So that happened, and then things kind of spiraled from there. So my oldest sister moved out at 15 with this boyfriend, and by 17 got into addiction and drugs, and that kind of started her road. My other sister got pregnant at 16 and kind of started her road, and I was just kind of always like there, just
The
kind of
younger
the
sister.
observer.
Yeah.
Like, what is all this chaos and stuff going on? So my mom gets remarried. That's kind of been an up and down. He's got some bipolar stuff. So there was always just chaos,
Yeah.
like always growing up. And I was kind of always like, I I don't want to be chaos. I didn't want to. So I think
Were
I
you
didn't.
pretty aware then during that season to go, this is not normal.
Yeah.
Not everybody lives this way.
Yes.
I don't want this.
Yeah, very
Okay.
early. I was that kid. I was like, I am not smoking cigarettes. I am not going to drink. I'm not going to. So I was kind of like the ant. I was kind of the black sheep in the opposite direction. Like, I was like, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to prove to you, like, I'm going to be this, So for whatever reason, and my husband and I always talk about this, like, for whatever reason, like, I was spared of having any of these afflictions that they have, or like, and like, that's all.
Did you have good friends? Like growing, do you remember?
Yeah.
Like, I had these good friends, and I wanted to be.
I did, yeah. I spent a lot of time at
With
friends'
them and their houses,
Yes,
because they were probably a little more stable than
and I
your
think that's
environment.
kind of where I got the idea that I had friends that went to church and their families were people that followed Jesus, and I thought like, well, I want that kind of family. Like I want that kind of household where I feel safe and comfortable, and their lights are always on, and that as a 10-year-old you just don't really know. So I think I just kind of like sought that. So I kind of just always stayed. I didn't know that was my path yet, but I think I just was always seeking something,
that stability,
and that like I just always had like a strong moral compass, like early.
Yeah,
and I think that's just built inside of all of us. I mean, you can see that in like little kids.
Yeah.
Even when they're so young that they don't know what's happening, if there's stress and the parents are fighting or whatever, like they'll clue in on that and they'll be uneasy. And they can't even verbalize it or recognize it. But we just are built for safe community, safe relationships, and we just all know, like, it's not right.
No. So that's kind of my growing up, and then I was around friends, and then I had this boyfriend in high school who was from a very strong Christian family that he invited me to church. And so I went a couple times, and then I became...
Did you have friends at the church, or did you just go with him?
I just went with him.
Oh, okay.
And then his sister-in-law, who is actually a good friend of mine now, Abby, shout out Abby. I coach cheerleading with her still. Nice. She is kind of the one who, it's very intimidating coming in and not knowing Jesus and not knowing anything and just being like, oh,
and
I'm
having
just
never
showing up.
even been exposed to it.
Nothing.
Like, this is
I
something
knew
that's totally,
zero of the stories. I knew zero of I had no idea.
Even probably walking into a church service, what is going to happen now?
I had no clue.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just thought, oh gosh, what am I getting into here? But she was there, and she was like a really great person to like, because she's an English teacher, so she's like all in on the reading and the words and all this. You got to understand this, and she's deep in the theology, so I could ask her just like any question, and she had an answer for me or knew where to look. So she started doing a Bible study with me around that time. Just
And
me.
you're in high school at this point, or out of high school?
I think I was just graduated
From CV.
from
Go
CV.
Bears.
Go Bears! Yeah,
Had to throw that in.
yeah. CV. Kyle was there after me.
Go
Baby Kyle.
U High?
No.
Like, we're going to try to get through all the schools in the valley, or
No.
Okay.
Well, we just did. We
just
got
did.
cheerleading. Anyways.
Yes. So anyway, she just her and I, we did just like a one-on-one Bible study. She just took the time and did that with me. So shout out Abby. Lots of credit there to helping me on my walk.
And so at that point, you're going to church because your friends and your boyfriend invited you. Are you curious, or what is this Jesus thing at that point in your life?
It was just kind of like trying to figure it out. Like, and I remember like watching other people that I thought, and I remember that were Jesus followers. I'm like, hey, you're not supposed to do that, and like kind of just being like, wait. Like, and not really understanding that, oh, we're all real people and we all, because at the time I was like, whoa, you guys have you have Jesus, and like, I'm just finding him. And like, so, it probably took me a couple of years of just trying to like dig in and figure out. It was slow. Like, it was a slow process, but I think when I was 21, I got baptized, and I remember I just was so sad because none of my family came. I invited everyone, but it was like
came.
No, because they didn't understand.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, what do you mean? You're just
just a phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just okay. And then my mom like, well, you were baptized as a baby when you
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, and then you never took me to church again. So just kind of like, and then like fighting that uphill battle like against my family, and just but just knowing like this was my own path. And then I met my wonderful husband when I was 23, and he was from a Catholic family. So he had, some religious background, but he was kind of wandering around, kind of trying to figure out this Jesus thing too. And we just kind of, after we got married, we did it together. And then...
So when you were like early on, did you feel a sense of belonging and like people before you even had a belief? Or was it more, not that you have to have, one or the other, but like sometimes that's usually the story for folks is where like, I found some people and they like lived differently and they accepted me, and it was like whatever they had going on.
Yeah.
Loving each other, caring for one another, sharing or
whatever. Yeah, I think that was Abby for me for like a long. So I ended up coaching. I started coaching with her around that same time, and she was just like a huge support person in my walk with Jesus, and she, just giving me the answers, but also the support and the love and the unconditional love. And she knew my family story, and she was just always so like warm and like almost like empowering. Like, and the fact that you're here and you came and you still found Jesus, and like, and she's just very like, she'd build me up all the time, which I needed at that time. So yeah, she was a huge person for me. And then, I just like slowly found more and more people and friends that, when I was at college, like my friend Kristen, she's very rooted in her faith, and she has been a big person for me. And just finding, I think, more just women, like surrounding myself with
genuine relationship too.
Because
you didn't experience that growing up. Like you just experienced like
no. And like learning how to have emotions and friends that's not surface level. That's not just like, oh yeah, cool. Like we're friends and let's be friends and everything's fun all the time. And
it goes deeper.
It does. Yeah. And that took me a while to get there. But I slowly started to peel away the layers like an onion.
Yeah. And it's true for everybody, but like finding Jesus comes through a friend, comes through people, comes through relationship. And sometimes we think, I think when you're like introducing Jesus to others, you're like, well, I got to start with the belief and get them to like, sign off on this belief and agree before they could have a sense of really care and belonging.
Or show them these 3 scriptures, and then they're going to love Jesus and follow Jesus forever.
Or
like,
even to your point, Mel, like being a Jesus follower means X, Y, Z. And I had, my situation is similar. My friends invited me to youth group, and then they would be smoking weed before youth group, and I'd be like, "Wait, what? No, that's not it,
wrong.
Right?" Like,
And
I would I remember I was hurt. And I was like, "Dude, you're my friend. You told me to come to Jesus, and you're smoking weed, and you're having sex with your girlfriend. Like, I thought we weren't supposed to do those things, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is what following Jesus is, and this, like, having this."
And you're not supposed to do those.
Yeah,
But you're still not supposed
you're
to.
still not supposed to do those things, and those are wrong. But having this idea of what this means to be a Christian or a Christ follower.
Yeah, that took me a long time to like figure that out, because I was so like,
wait a second, they're not doing that. So does it
and
really
I was
matter?
always the morality police anyway before this, and I was like, you guys are bad, and I'm not. So.
Well, yeah, but it's part, like you said in your story, it's part of you just going, I don't want to be going down that path.
Yeah,
So
and I never wanted to be given
really
that
strong
label. Yeah, so I did everything in my power to do the opposite.
And God's given you the gift of like galvanizing. So regardless, right, it's hardwired inside of you, 10 or 11. You're like, okay, people, we are not doing this because this is not the direction we're headed. We're going this way. And so, you're always galvanizing people a certain direction.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about following Jesus is people can belong and feel belonging before they believe. Because even Jesus' disciples, Jesus was not looking for just a bunch of yes men that just nodded their head in agreement and then went and lived something totally different.
Right.
And we see them all throughout. Jesus is like, you guys aren't going to believe, you're going to fall away. They're like, no, we're all in.
Yeah.
And then nobody was standing at the tomb waiting, counting down from 10, like he's going to, this is going to happen. So it's the reality of life following Jesus is actually living out. Because if we want to be like Jesus, we actually have to live like Jesus lived and be like him.
And how important it was for you in your coming to faith, what relationship, like having this person that is going to invest in you and not just stop or be like, well, I'm going to continue to answer her questions. I'm going to continue to build this relationship that is going to hopefully someday have fruit of that.
Yeah.
It's
So
so important.
And to Scott's point, I mean, like, whatever your story is, you can't take that relationship and that community out of it. I mean,
You
people
can't.
could be like, "Oh no, I was pretty much on my own. I found Jesus."
Right.
Like, and like you
And
could
then
think
what?
that,
Yeah.
but I mean, again, the way of Jesus is community, is
Yes.
people,
For sure.
And as much as we try to separate or think we can do it on our own or try to separate ourselves, like we can't.
Yeah.
We were designed, hardwired, built to be in relationship, and that's the way of Jesus, and that's the Jesus community. And so,
Yeah.
if you're trying to do it on your own, it's an uphill battle. I mean, it's just
is.
not the way you were built.
Right. And there's moments where people like, get to a certain spot and they're like, I finally sat down by myself, read the scriptures, read through
Yeah.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, like to know who Jesus is,
Yeah.
and then came to a spot where I was like, yes. But to get to that point involved a parent or a friend or
For
a
sure.
grandparent or this aunt or this thing or this pastor would be, somebody was involved in their life.
Yeah.
Then they finally have this kind of moment or a season where they really dig in and go, okay, I got to decide for myself,
Yeah.
which we all do.
Yeah.
Can decide for myself.
Yeah.
So when you were, early on, when you were finding out who Jesus is, what do you remember back? Like, was it hard? Was it difficult to like believe like there's a God who created me and like wants a relationship with me?
Yeah.
Was it intriguing?
It was
or
at first
what
it was
it?
hard because I came from a place of like not understanding, well, why is it so hard? Like, why is there so much chaos and hurt and addiction? And, I didn't understand. So I was like digging in, trying to find, I don't know what I was looking for, but I just knew that that's where I needed to look. So, I think I did a lot of reading early on, just going through the New Testament and like trying to like, okay, like I understand who this Jesus guy is and I know that he loves me, but like,
Where does the rest of it fit?
where's the rest of it fit? So I spent a long time like knowing that I had Jesus loved me, and like we built this relationship and like on prayer and like reading the scriptures. But I think it took me until I was probably like 30 to understand the forgiveness part, like to myself, to everyone, to my family, to my parents, to my, so it was a slow learning curve, but I got there, but yeah.
It's such a huge thing, though, for all of us, regardless of our past and story and where we find Jesus, is to reconcile, like, okay, there's this loving God who's all-powerful, all-knowing, and then yet there's the reality of the world I'm living in, and reconciling those, like, how do these get together? Because God knows things. He's
and my
powerful.
job, too, like, so my job, and it was just every day was just
Chaos.
trauma,
Yeah,
like trauma,
Big
and just, calls you just never want to be a part of, and things that you hear happening to people, and you're like, this is like people here, and it's every day. So I think just like that, I would find myself getting in these like low ruts of just like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. And so then dig back in and then I think one day I was just like, oh, like it's bigger than that. And it's like the forgiveness part was like the part that finally made me like have my aha moment, I think. And
Do you think that was the forgiveness for you, or just the bigger picture of like you forgiving other people? Like, what was it?
Everything.
Just
Yeah,
hit you,
forgiving. Like I was I held on like very tight to, nope, you burned me. Nope, I'm not gonna have a relationship with my dad. I'm not gonna have this. And then one day I was just like, for what? Like the bigger purpose of Jesus is to like love and forgive and have relationship. And now, like, I feel like I'm like one of those people now that I'm like, there's nothing too big that we can't like with Jesus, but it's true. and like, it just like, I felt such like a heavy like weight taken off of me once I like figured that out. And then now I just want everyone to have that. And now I like harass everyone I know to like, do you want to come to women's group? Do you want to come to our church? Oh, you should come. Our small group is enormous because I want everyone that I know to have what I have. And like, I think I get frustrated still with people because I see people and I'm like, you have it, or like, but like, what are you doing? Like, you know better than this. Like, let's go. And I just want everyone to have that.
Do you know what it was that clicked for you, that forgiveness piece hit,
Yeah.
or made more sense?
So my dad passed away when I was 31. He had cancer. He's 54 years old, super young. And I remember when it was happening, being like, oh, I should try to have a relationship. I should talk to him. I should ask him if he's saved. I don't know if he believed in God. Like, I have no idea.
What was your relationship contact through your 20s?
Through my 20s, very sporadic.
Like once a year?
Yeah, probably once a year. He's a mechanic, so anytime my car would break down, I'd be like, hey, Dad, you need to fix my car? So I think that was his way of like showing me that he cared, was like, yep, bring it over. So, but he didn't even meet my kids until Charlie was, I think, just born, and Eli was 2.5. So there wasn't like an ongoing relationship. He was at my wedding. There was, I did like, I tried.
Yeah.
There were certain times that I was like, okay, I'm just going to like bite the bullet here and like have him walk me down the aisle. I'm going to do the things. But I remember I didn't do a father-daughter dance because I was like,
But he walked you down the aisle?
He did. They both my stepdad and my dad did.
Oh, wow.
Just so I had both of them do it.
Yeah.
And so they both did. But then I remember like, I didn't want the father-daughter dance. I didn't want because we didn't have that relationship.
Yeah. Don't single him out. As
Right.
My dad.
And I don't, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
And
there
wasn't the intimacy there. So like this is an
None.
intimate moment. Like,
No.
Like, we don't have an intimate relationship at all.
No, so I didn't want that. And I was like, And I remember my mother-in-law being like, but I want to dance with my son. I'm like, sorry, we're not doing it.
Not doing it.
Like,
Dance when it's
that
all
would be,
dance.
yeah. I'm like,
The
you can dance some other time.
The single dances are great.
They're awkward.
So
They
weird.
get
Yeah.
so long.
So
Unless you're like a good
Yeah.
dancer, like as a group, like
right.
a couple.
I
so
think that's
weird.
where like the choreographed dances have come in and not make it as
Yeah.
awkward.
Or
moment.
let's pick the 2-minute version of the song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Or like
5.5
fade
minute-
it
out.
Yep, I did that with my mom.
Fade
I'm like,
it
I'm
out.
done. It was
Yeah.
awkward. And I love my mom, and we have a great intimate
Yeah.
relationship. But we're super close. But it was like
I don't
everyone's
want
looking at us. I don't know
Yeah.
what to do. Thanks, Mom, for being here. Thanks for celebrating with me.
Bye.
Okay, we're done.
Yep.
Yeah.
I am all, when I say all in, as like theory. Like as Americans, we need to have more like dances and celebration.
Yeah.
Like some of our rituals and traditions as a culture. I just look at other
Yeah.
cultures from the outside and go,
Yeah.
I think they're doing it better.
Yeah.
You're
Like,
speaking my language.
When you go to Hawaii, like
Party all the time.
the like people are just jumping in on stuff. Or other countries, like
Yeah.
we just start singing these
Yeah.
songs. Like everyone knows we sing Happy Birthday like bad
Yeah.
together. Like what do we
Yeah,
do?
and it's not even like, ooh, yay, happy birthday. Sometimes
I
it's
look
like,
at
eh,
African
mm.
tribes.
Come on, America, get it together.
Come on. Well, it starts with us, Carl.
Okay.
Let's take some
Let's go.
extreme ownership here.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Anyway.
All right.
so your
So
turning
through my
point for
20s,
your dad.
yes. So
is-
then he got sick, and it was kind of like, oh, I should do something, but I didn't really know what to do, and it went really fast. Like, I think we showed up. My sister and I showed up to his birthday party. They had like a barbecue at their house, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and that was in February, and he died March 12th. So it
wow.
was pretty quick.
Yeah,
and it
very
was like
fast.
in and out, and he had, he had painted cars for years, so he had like a bunch of tumors and stuff from like never wearing a mask while he was painting, and just they think it was like chemical exposure, but it went really fast. And I remember we went to see him before he had passed away, and they were doing some like putting in like a feeding tube or something, and my sister and I waited a few hours, and then we left because it was going to be a while. And then we never got to see him again. So then we got, and then I remember just being like, I should have stayed.
So
I should have like,
regretful, yeah.
lots of regret.
Yeah.
So I think like it took me a while to work through that, and like just like I couldn't decide. Like I was sad, but then my family doesn't know how to show emotions. So then I was just making jokes all the time, and I was like, oh, it's okay. Like someone asked me to do something. I'm like, my dad just died. You seriously want me to do that? And they're looking at me like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know how to process emotion. I'm working on it. So yeah, that happened. And then I like worked through that in my relationship. And it sounds like crazy, but like I feel closer to him now than I ever did.
Yeah.
Like,
So is that
So-
moment you were able to just forgive him from?
yeah, I finally
walking
had
out
this
and
like
divorce
moment
and-
of like, I can let that all go and I forgive him. And yeah,
Yeah.
like I think I wrote him a letter, and then like now sometimes I just like talk to him, and I'm like, well, hey Dad. So, cause he's in like a little box in my living room. You guys probably haven't seen it. He's up in the corner in this little chest in there. I have some ashes, and yeah, it's been interesting, but it's like helped me a ton.
Yeah.
Like on my,
And part of that Share about how you planned like the thing where you guys went and
Oh, so yeah, it took me, 5 years to
yeah.
come to the point where it was like, okay, we can finally grieve. So when he died, long story short, he had this girlfriend and we got sued and I ended up like, we in probate court and all this. I was pregnant and I kept getting like,
It was a bad situation all
Like,
around.
Sued
taken
for
to-
like for inheritance and stuff. Like
he didn't have anything,
Yeah.
but he had this girlfriend and she
But he
said-
had stuff.
but he had like,
He
yeah,
had like
but-
cars and business and
Yeah, but
stuff.
so he works out of like a shop on this property that he lived with his girlfriend, and she was trying to say that he owed her like $60,000 in electricity bills for the 12 years that he was there, and like just so she was suing me because my sisters, one's gone in addiction and the other one is just didn't have the means. So
Yeah.
here's Sam and I were like, okay, we paying for this funeral for this guy who owed my mom $50,000 in child support, and I'm
Yeah.
like, and I have to pay for the funeral. Like, this is okay. So
working through it.
yeah, working through it. Now I'm happily, but yeah. So like, it was just stressful. Like there was no time to grieve. There was just a lot of like drama that came along with it. So after a while, like I finally got to the point where I was ready to grieve, and we had his ashes. So I made my mom and my sister come on his birthday.
And I love that you made them. Like,
did.
we are doing
They
this
did
and
not-
we are going to do
they
this.
did not want to
yeah, they
come.
didn't want to at all. But what a
And-
special moment for all of you.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. Yeah, we're a very unemotional family, and I made them cry. I prayed out loud. Thank you very
Let's
much.
go. Way to be brave.
Thank you very
And
much.
you
I
signed
made
up
them.
for a
We all held
podcast?
hands, and we went to this we took we used to go camping a lot as a kid. So there was a beach that we had gone to, camped at, that was like one of our best memories. So I was like, let's go there. And so we went there and we spread some ashes, and then like we prayed and we said goodbye to him, and it was very therapeutic, and
And it was good closure for you.
it was good closure.
And then it's good for them. They didn't probably know that they needed that moment.
Yeah, and
And then
that
for
kind of
all of you to
opened their
have that
door.
together.
My sister looked at me. She goes, "I've never heard you pray out loud before."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, get ready because you're next."
You have no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of and then so like I probably since my 30s, I think I've just like I'm very at peace with like
Yeah. With that
where
relationship.
I'm at in my relationships and
Yeah.
where I'm at with Jesus, and like now it's just kind of like, what can I do? Like, what can I do to like further God's kingdom and like give everybody the gift that I have? So
Yeah, and it's so powerful. It's why we all, come to Jesus, whether we know it or not, is to
Yeah.
receive His forgiveness and how He transforms us and changes us.
yeah,
And I always like to think of forgiveness as they don't owe me anymore.
nope,
And
yeah,
so whatever that is, for they didn't say sorry to, there's life of chaos and trauma and hurt, like I release them from owing me, because as we hold on to that, it just eats us up.
Yeah.
And sometimes the other person doesn't even care,
Yeah.
or it seems like they don't care, or they're unaware, and like, you owe me, and I'm still waiting for you to do the thing, and I'm gonna get you with that. And they're like, oh, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, well, remember that time
I don't
3 years
I
ago?
don't. Yeah, I don't even remember what you're
Right.
talking about.
You're like, no,
Yeah.
it's been eating me up for
You're
3
like,
years. You
Yeah.
owe me. You owe me. You owe me. And like to forgive means to say,
Yeah.
you don't owe me. That's what Christ has done for all of us.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of not trying to make ourselves right with God.
Yeah.
Going, oh, because of the work of Christ, we're in
Yeah.
good standing with God, so I can
Yeah.
live from that
yeah.
and help other people.
And now, like in long story short, we don't have a lot of time, but
Oh, we have all the time in
okay.
the world. Yeah.
So
Oh, she has to go to work, remember?
no, not till later. But from that,
Nobody
I've been
call 911
able,
right now for any fire emergency.
I've been
okay?
able to help like our biggest like story of like seeing God work in our lives is my sister's obviously redemption story, which is her story, but God worked through me and Sam to help her out of addiction,
Yeah.
and
shout out to Sam. He's a great dude.
he's so wonderful.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He's the best.
He could come on too if he wanted to share his story. But
He's like the most thoughtful and insightful speaker too. So when he says stuff, I'm like, oh, I never would have thought of it that way. Like, you're so smart.
So
he's a good
smart,
dude.
Sam.
But your part in that too, and maybe that's helpful for someone listening in
Yeah.
with your sister Amanda about a year ago,
Yeah.
where you're having to walk through kind of a similar thing relationally with your dad,
Yeah.
where with her going,
Yeah.
okay, there's this stuff in the past, but now you need help,
Yeah.
and how do I engage and help you but I feel like you kind of owe me, and is this like tricky? And there's more of that just
And
loving
I've been
people
burned
really
by you
well.
before.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
how do
you know,
So you could share your part of
addiction
the
comes
story.
with like a huge burning of bridges for years and years and years and years
Yeah.
and years. And so she was, you know, and she's open about it. She was an addict for like meth, heroin, opiates, like you name it, through the years. And we were at women's retreat last year, and I got a phone call that she was in the hospital and had this blood infection, and it was involving her heart and all these things from injecting drugs into her system for so long. And we prayed, and a bunch of women came together and prayed, and it was like, okay, like I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this, but we left the retreat. And
so were you like a primary contact? Why'd they call you?
no, they called my mom.
Okay.
I hadn't even talked to her in 5 years.
Yeah, that's what I
They had called my mom. Then my mom called me, and she's like, "I think your sister's gonna die. Like,
It
we
was
need to."
dire. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
And I
not
was like,
looking
"Okay,
good.
do I need to leave?" And then she left. She checked out of the hospital because she, you know, needed to go get high. So she had left the hospital. We couldn't find her, and I got home, and I remember telling Sam, I was like, and something about my personality is, I'm stubborn and I'm unrelenting.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not letting her go away. So she brought herself back into our lives, and guess what? Now she's getting me. So I called her and called her and called her. I started calling friends of hers I went through like her Facebook and found people, and I was like, do you know where my sister is? This is her sister. Do you know where my sister is? Until finally, after like, I don't even know, like 12 hours, she texted me back. She was like, okay, what do you want? And I was like, you're in the hospital. I heard this, like, you need to go back. And she was like, fine, if you meet me there, I'll go. So it was 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, and I just looked at Sam, and I was like, I'm going to go. And he was like, yeah. And I go, and I'm not going to leave until something happens. And he was like, okay, which, bless him, the support that man gives me. I'm like, okay, thank you. So, you know, I went and stayed up with her all night at the hospital. I saw her, and I remember like praying on the way there, and just in the car, just like being like, God, just give me the words, give me something, because I didn't know what to say to her. And every time I'd seen her since then, it had been like, I can't believe you did this. I can't believe you're doing this. Like, why are you doing this? And I was like, I just need to come from a place of love and forgiveness. And so I came in and saw her, and she started crying, and I started crying because she looked terrible. And I just told her, I was like, I love you, and God loves you. And like, can I pray over you? And like, let's figure this out. And sorry, it makes me cry.
That's okay. We're good with emotions
I
around
know.
here.
And she was willing, and she was like, I can't believe this is you. Like, she'd never seen me in such a loving
Without
way.
judgment, yeah.
Yeah, without judgment, because that's all she knew.
Yeah.
And so,
And God had shifted your heart too, right?
yeah,
As far as how you were going to approach her.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And
Because if that wouldn't have happened, she probably would have been like, yeah, I'm out again.
yeah, she would have for sure.
Yeah.
And I just told her, I was like, I forgive you. Like, we don't need to talk about like why we're here, or like what you did or whatever, but like, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Like, if you're willing, I'm willing to put in the work. And she was like, okay. So we stayed up all night, and then the only place I could find her was 7 hours across the state, and we stayed up and drove her and got her into treatment, and she just celebrated her year in October. So it's been just remarkable. And like, then she got out, and I remember like talking to Sam and being like, where's she going to go? And he's like, well, your parent? I'm like, I think she has to be here. And he was like, no. And then he sat on it for about a day, and he prayed about it. And he's the processor, and he analyzed and he was like, yeah, like if we're going to say that we're people that are following Jesus and we're going to live like Jesus, like that's what we do. And we have small kids. So it was
it's more
like
than
that
just
struggle of
gonna,
okay, like we just set hard rules, and we were like, this is our house and this is our rules, and like, you can be here. And it was the coolest thing to watch and like be a part of her story of recovery, and like, you know, working through all of her stuff. And she's crushing it. She's doing great.
Doing so
and
good. Yeah.
it's awesome to watch God work in her life.
Yeah. And it's so powerful, and don't want to just move right by it, but just to be with people. Like, that's part of how God works. And as Jesus followers, like, we are separate from God, and then we come to him because of the work of Christ, and then we're his kids. So then he puts his spirit inside of us. So when you show up to a hospital room and you're like, I don't know what to do or what to say.
Yeah.
The presence of God is in you, and then to be with people is super powerful, especially maybe somebody who you've been at odds with or just like resistant to, and just go love, and then I'm going to show it by being here.
Yeah.
And then I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
Because I'm knucklehead stubborn.
Yeah.
In such a good way.
In such a good
In
way.
such a good
and
way.
all my years of staying up all night had prepared me for the. I was like,
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
I can-
I'm not going in because I was worried
were ready.
if I fell asleep or I went somewhere, she would leave. So
Yes.
I was like, don't worry, Dateline's on from 2 to 4,
Right.
and I'm not going anywhere.
I've
'Cause-
done this 24-hour shift.
Yeah,
a
let's
long
go.
Yeah,
time.
let's go.
911 operator is a 24-hour shift.
For fire, for the
For
fire
fire,
department
or
it
for
is.
fire,
So yeah,
yeah.
lots of shifts
In
of
case someone listening,
staying up all
like,
night.
how was she up all night? Was she doing
Yeah,
drugs
what was
too?
she doing? Yeah, no.
Is she on,
I was
meth?
saving lives, people.
Saving
I was there
lives.
for you when you needed me. So
And then just the presence with her, like car ride across the state.
yeah, and
be
that
with
was
her,
crazy.
And then
Yeah,
you're like,
someone going through heroin withdrawals is no joke.
and then you said, and then you guys as a family said,
Yeah.
oh, well, no, to be with us.
Yeah.
Literally in our house.
And it was
for a
crazy
year.
because all she wanted to do, and I thought it was so, because I didn't know if she had any relationship with God at this point, and
Right.
all she wanted to do was listen to worship music, and I was like, yes. So we did the whole way, and my mom and my sister were like looking at us like we're crazy, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, you don't know this song, and then we were just singing. So yeah, it was a really cool. I know she hates it, but she talks about it. She's like, oh, that car ride. I'm like, that car ride, saved your life.
Yeah.
So I cherish that car ride. I don't want to do it again, but I'll never forget
But it was
it.
definitely a turning point in your relationship,
For sure,
in
yeah.
her relationship,
Yeah.
in your mom and your sister's relationship. I mean, just the past year, it's not just
Yeah.
Amanda, but it's been your
Everybody.
whole,
yeah. And everybody watching her story. And
yeah.
I'm kind of just like working on everyone else. I'm like, but look what God did for Amanda. God can
Yeah.
do that. God can do anything.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, yeah, I guess you're probably right. I'm like, I am right.
You make a good
Come
point.
along. Come along with me, friends.
Follow Jesus. It's awesome. He'll change your
It
life.
is.
It's
I even do it to my
transformative.
cheerleaders. I'm like, oh, well, do you want to hear this story? And they're like, no, not really. I'm like, you're
Can we
going
just
to.
talk about cheer now?
Yeah.
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 No,
Nope.
God wants to change you from the
Nope.
inside
God
out.
put me here to help you along your path. So, yeah.
Roger
There's my
that.
story. Sorry, am I too chatty?
No, this is so
Yes.
great. You were
the
so
point of the podcast is to be chatty. So
Sorry,
you're
okay.
in the right
It's
spot.
a talking
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
You just
Yeah.
I
talk
thought I would
and
have nothing to
everyone
say.
talks.
It turns out I had a lot to say.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I just been waiting to get it out.
We did a quick poll. Nobody was on your side of thinking you had nothing to say.
Oh, okay,
Right?
great.
You have a
I had a lot
great
to say.
story. It's a great.
Yeah.
It's just it's a great visual of relationship and how important relationship is.
Yeah.
Because Abby was that person to you, and you're
Yeah.
that person to your sister, and
Yeah. And
Hopefully-
more. Like,
yeah,
it's
and
just
more.
like we're never done.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm never going to be done doing
Right.
this. And just,
we're not till we're
Yeah,
in
and
heaven.
just following that lead. Like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm supposed to go to the hospital.
Yep.
Okay, I think she's supposed to live with us. Like,
Yeah.
okay, Jesus, what do you got next?
yeah.
Like, we're just
Yeah.
I don't
gonna be
know.
obedient to where you're going.
Yeah.
If we say we're people that are guided by the Holy Spirit and we should keep in step with the Spirit,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we're in this season right now at Mission Church just being brave.
Yeah.
And people that are going, okay, God, and we don't know all the answers. We don't
Nope.
have all the steps. We're uncertain, but we're not going to be slowed down by some danger or pain or conflict or even the potential.
I was gonna say even the
of
what
danger
ifs.
or
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there was a lot of what ifs and
Yeah.
that you could have just rested in.
Oh,
Like,
for
What
sure.
if she does this again? What if she does this?
Oh,
again?
yeah. But we just trusted. And
Yeah.
my-
And the not understanding, right? Like
Right.
When God leads, sometimes the Holy Spirit speaks. You're like, why? It
Why?
doesn't make any sense.
Why would I
do
do
I need
that?
to do that? Right?
Yeah.
Like, or how? And
Yeah.
like, or it's dangerous. Whatever. Even like the silly stuff. It's like, why? Why would you be saying that? Like you shared some stuff on Sunday, and some of the stuff you're like, is that the Holy Spirit? It just sounds weird. Like, why
Yeah.
would I go do that? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna try it. See what.
See, with Amanda's thing, though, I feel like that moment, like, I knew.
Yeah.
Like, I knew, and I looked at Sam, and he knew, and we were just like, yeah, this is it. This is God, and this, like, he's using us to, like, do this thing. And we were like, we knew it was a big thing at the time. And it was just, yeah, like, we were all in on.
Because her life literally was at stake.
And we had never been in a place in our lives where we could have supported her the way we supported her. Like,
Yeah.
I worked, and we, like, there was just, and just everything aligned. And it was like, this is the time. This
Yeah.
is the time. Like, this is why.
And when will you have that like confidence that it's God saying do this thing and we don't know how it's all going to turn out, the confidence that it's God leading us, you're like, well, he's our guide, he's trustworthy, so it's going to work. Like I don't
Yeah.
know the answers here,
Yeah.
I don't know the why, I may never know, but that doesn't slow me down.
Yeah.
And it's such it's almost not even a brave move at that point.
Yeah.
Because you're like,
You're
oh
just
no,
being
God
obedient.
said do it.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's going to work out. Like I've had so many of those where it doesn't even feel that brave.
Like thinking back, I don't think I ever worried about it. Like even so, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be, we're doing what we're doing. Like,
because God's going to take care of us, and He'll provide everything that we need.
I think your family had more red flags than probably you did. Like, what about your kids? What about this? What about this?
Yeah. And even
like,
Sam, who's very like risk averse, was like, yeah, no, I think that's what we're supposed to do. And I'm like, all right, if he says it,
if he says it,
I'm in.
Then obviously it's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if we're trying to build our lives in following Jesus to get other people to have consensus on what we should do following Jesus, it's never, because God didn't speak to them. It's not their story. It's not their journey.
Right.
They may not even be a Jesus follower, and they're like, what are you doing? And you're like, yeah, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? If we're trying to build consensus, following Jesus didn't ask us to go ask all of our friends if we should do something. He's like, follow me.
Yeah.
And it always works out really good following Jesus.
Yeah.
And even though on the outside it may look weird or just like people don't get it, but like, I'm not doing it so you get it. Hopefully.
Yeah, and it's different for everyone, which is like something I've had to figure out. Like I always felt like, well, everyone else had it, and like everyone knows everything, and I know nothing. Yeah. And I'm like, that's not really true. And I've learned that as I've gotten older, and so just like, okay, everyone's story is different, and when they figure it out, they figure it out, and I'm just going to be here to help them if they need it. It's kind of my job.
Well, and you helped some people today, I think, listening in.
I
your
hope
story.
so.
Thanks for being brave and coming on and sharing. Well, not too bad, right?
No, it wasn't that bad.
No, yeah.
I kind of forgot that we were on the podcast.
You're just.
I was like, oh, did you guys want to talk about my counseling session?
Yeah. That's why you're surrounded by a group of friends. It makes it easier.
It does make it easier.
Yeah. Thanks for being on the podcast today. We appreciate it. Thanks for bringing your friend along.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
Great to have two ladies on the podcast. It was more better.
Better.
I don't know.
I don't know where you're going. It was great.
It was probably fantastic.
It was
Have
better.
two ladies.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be.
We just
sensitive
spice
to
up
my
the room a
feelings.
whole lot more.
That's right.
Excellent. Well, anyways, as you're listening, hopefully you were encouraged today. Hopefully you found something that maybe would help you take some action on what it means for you to follow Jesus. So have a great week doing that. We'll see you next time.